All right, what's up, everyone? This is Nate Thurston with Good Morning Liberty, and today I am joined by the chair of the Libertarian Party and a member of the Mises Caucus Insurgency, from what I can tell, Angela McArdle. How you doing today?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me.
We really appreciate your time coming on here. So obviously I alluded to what we're going to be talking about today with this article from The Hill. And I have to preface this conversation. So there's two of us on this show. Charlie is not able to be here today. He is actually a member of the Libertarian Party, and I'm not. He joined because we had Josiah on the show, and Josiah converted him live on the show. It was a beautiful moment anytime you see that happen. But I haven't done that yet, and I'm hoping that you can nudge me along because I really want to do it. I don't know why I haven't yet. I mean, I'm a libertarian at heart. I'm a Ron Paul, Ayn Rand libertarian. I was a member of the LP until that 2020 election cycle happened, and I went ahead and left the party at that time. So what I want to figure out is why I haven't joined, why I haven't seen that as something valuable enough for me to do. And I bet you there's a lot of other people like me out there as well, that are libertarians that haven't joined the party yet. So I would like to fix this situation. But before we get into that, I guess you could introduce yourself to the people listening.
Sure. So my name is Angela McArdle. I chair the National Libertarian Party. I've been active in the party for several years. I've run for Congress twice in California's 34th Congressional District. I used to be the secretary of the California Libertarian Party and longtime chair of the LA County Libertarian Party as well. Been really active in the medical freedom movement throughout my involvement in the LP and before, and really passionate about anti-war and economic literacy. This is like, I absolutely love it. I love what I do.
So from what I can tell in the media, over the last year or so, the Libertarian Party has completely collapsed. Is that the case? That's what I'm picking up right now.
You know, we're getting some negative media attention from some salty haters who like to go run and smear us to corporate media, but otherwise we're doing pretty well. I think we're on the up and up. There's been a handful of people who have, thrown a fit and had a temper tantrum and left in a rage, taken their ball and gone home. Best of luck to you with your home sports. And the rest of us are doing our thing, man. We're running candidates. We're working on advancing libertarian policy and getting the philosophy of liberty out there. And I'm really excited about the future of the party.
Yeah, so I'm sure everyone is aware, but there was the Mises Caucus came up and kind of took over the party. And what would you say the biggest difference is between those major factions in the party?
I think that, okay, so what I would have said 6 months ago was that the biggest difference is that the pragmatic element in the party and the Mises Caucus have different views about whether or not there's value in mainstream acceptance. And that people who are more pragmatic, who are oppositional to the caucus, not everyone who's pragmatic is, by the way, but our detractors, our haters, they are very busy chasing mainstream approval, and they operate as though they have very low self-esteem about being libertarians. And the Mises Caucus is very vocal about what we're about. We are staunchly anti-war. It doesn't matter if it's unpopular. We are for economic literacy. We're tired of being taxed to death. We believe that a long-term strategy is the only successful path forward, and that means beginning and investing at the local level so that you gain political capital, you gain experience, and that's the closest place that you can really make a difference. And we've seen that in little small, more red or liberty-minded cities and counties that operate under tyrannical blue state governors. For example, you can push back. You really can at the local level. I would say now, though, that the stark difference that I've seen is not so much about mainstream approval. It's really people in the Mises Caucus and people who are sort of caucus neutral. We respect natural hierarchy. We are willing to follow our own party's rules and bylaws, and we're not interested in dirty, underhanded tactics. And our detractors don't agree. They think that they operate more like Antifa. It's by any means necessary. If you've got to cheat, if you've got to lie, if you've got to destroy your own organization in order to try to one up your enemy, that's the way that they want to do it. And I think that that is really the main difference between the two groups.
But those people would probably say that you guys are the insurgents that came in and destroyed the party, right?
They might, and I'm sure they say that about some of us. I've been in the party since before the caucus existed, like quite active, ran for Congress, the whole thing, had the party's approval, had support from national people on the left too, left-leaning libertarians. So you could say that we are the insurgents, but what you couldn't say is that we break laws and destroy party assets and cheat and steal. Because we've been committed to this since the beginning. It took about 5 years, and we didn't pack up and go home. We stuck it out and said, what we got to do is we got to outgrow and out recruit, and we got to just have the better message.
So I keep calling it you guys insurgents as a joke because of this article from The Hill that I wanted to go through with you by Andrew Koppelman. I guess that's the
Yeah.
Does he have any affiliation with Libertarian Party at all? Do you know?
I'm not familiar with him. I did a
Okay.
little bit of research.
Well, this article is called, if everyone at home hasn't read it, I'll put a link to the show notes, but it's called The Libertarian Party is Collapsing, and here's why. And Andrew's going to tell everyone why. And so he starts off by saying that a few years after the greatest triumph, the LP is collapsing, torn apart by an insurgency of alt-right sympathizers with racist tendencies. So, I don't know if you could be any more general than that, but you probably have links to people who are racist, I would say, or ties to, or someone knows someone who is racist. But he does go on to say, I will say, he says that libertarianism is inconsistent with racism, but the libertarian rhetoric has always had powerful attractions for those who wanted to resist racial equality. How is that possible? So I wanted to, this is what I keep hearing. I keep hearing about the racist and the fascist and the alt-right extremists and all of that. What's going on with that? Is this the same thing that we hear from the media all the time? Anyone who I disagree with is a fascist and a racist?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's also remarkable that people are comfortable making these accusations at us, while at the same time, these same people say things like our gay members are tokens. They say awful things about our Black members, that they're tokens, that they're Uncle Toms, so on and so forth. Like, if you don't toe the line, these people are just pretty savage to you. There's a lot of people in the Mises Caucus who are not white or Caucasian. We have a lot of gay members. We have a handful of trans members. There's no litmus test for how straight and white you have to be in the caucus. But I believe that there is definitely a litmus test for ideological thought crimes for anyone who wants to oppose the mainstream narrative. And if you don't adopt woke talking points, they're going to call you a racist. They're going to call you a Nazi, a white supremacist. And then the burden is on you to prove yourself and say, I'm not a Nazi, which is obviously not a good position to be in PR wise. So I understand why they do it, because it's a very good, very aggressive tactic. I think it's like immoral and reprehensible though, but that's neither here nor there. This is politics.
Well, the author even goes on to name a bunch of the prominent libertarian authors and says that none of those people were racist. And I think that it's great that he at least pointed that out, but he does say that the libertarian message can, I guess, be attractive to people who are racist. Do you think there's any credence to the idea that actual racists would find libertarianism, I don't know, something that they would be interested in?
I think that people who are racist or who adopt like really antisocial views on society, human interaction, they're always going to be attracted to fringe movements no matter what. And so to the extent that we're a fringe movement, we're going to get a handful of weirdos here and there.
Hmm.
That's just, same as any other kind of strange fringe movement.
So with all the name calling in this article, the only thing that they ever bring up as an example is a tweet from the Libertarian Party of New Hampshire, and I've seen a lot of talk about this. And if you could, they bring up two things. They bring up the LPNH, and then they bring up changing the party platform language.
Okay.
And so those are the two things. First off, if you could tell me how the party is organized, and I know you have these separate state affiliates who can basically do their own thing. Why is that? And do you have any thoughts about the messaging from LPNH?
So I'm not always excited about what comes out of LPNH's Twitter account. That's no secret. But we are structured in a way that I have absolutely no control over that. And affiliates are fairly autonomous. We control the name and to a certain extent some of the branding, and we work together on issues like ballot access. And I'd love to see us have a more unified front on messaging, and that's something that we have been collaborating with a handful of states on. But it is the Libertarian Party is designed to facilitate a more bottom-up process so that the person who's in charge at the national level does not have top-down tyrannical control. To the extent that I have top-down control, like I have the final say over what happens with staff and a handful of things at national, but I don't have it over the entire country, and that's totally okay. Like I'm comfortable with that. We're not going to bat 1,000 every time. There's always going to be someone that goes off script and pulls a Leroy Jenkins, and that's just part of running a giant national movement. You got to roll with the punches sometimes, even if the punches are taking place on Martin Luther King Jr. Day.
Exactly. They did delete the post, by the way. They do point that out in the article.
They did.
I would say I've definitely thought some of the things they posted were great, and I get it. And sometimes I think it's great, but I would understand it not being a good idea to post that as a state party. And then sometimes I think that they just go a little bit too far. But I do like the idea that I like the separation between the state parties. But do you think there's any value in the way that the other parties would do it, where they have this unified message that the whole party's putting forward all the time?
There's value in it, but I just don't think that it would really work as well with libertarians. And we're very much people who need to do their own thing. The other thing too is because we're sort of strapped on resources, we have to trust people to run their own affiliates, and we have to give them a certain degree of autonomy because we can't do it all on our own. And so we do have to support each other. And sometimes that means, Jesus, take the wheel. You're gonna let someone else be in charge of their own affairs. I guess it's actually a pretty libertarian way to run things, right?
Mhm.
Like I don't know what's best for every libertarian in Nevada. They know what's best for them.
Yeah, I get that. I totally get that. I think sometimes it can lead to a little bit of a disorganization, and we have these issues like this, but also we believe in free speech, and
Yep.
no one was harmed in the tweeting of these words, so that's okay. Now, how about we condemn bigotry as irrational and repugnant?
I mean, this is like, what is bigotry? No
Yeah.
one can agree on what bigotry is. And they hate when I say this. This is going to get clipped. They hate when Angela doesn't know what bigotry is. Well, that's because you call everyone a bigot that you don't like. I'm kind of bigoted against communism. I'll own that. Yeah, I'm kind of bigoted against like war and blowing up innocent children in foreign countries. I'm an anti-war, like bigot, I guess. But when our detractors use the word bigot, it's just a catch-all insult for their political enemies. That's all it means. Is they're like, we don't like your politics, therefore you're a bigot.
I got you. So that was the idea behind removing that, not because you actually wanted to bring a bunch of bigots into the party. I'm just trying to get this all worked out properly.
I mean, those people who are like hardcore racists, no, you can't, it's impossible to know what someone's thinking privately. We don't believe in thought crimes. We don't know people's private thoughts. But for people who are loud and out about being racist or who believe in an ethno state and that kind of creepy stuff, those people don't last in the party because the culture for that isn't here. We really believe in individualism.
Well, first
And so
off,
that's what we promote.
well, yeah, exactly. That's what I'm going to say. If anyone's not a real libertarian, racist, or a bigot, someone who groups people together by the color of their skin or their sex or whatever it is, they're not libertarian anyway. They might be attracted to
Right.
some of the messaging from the party, but what people have to realize is that that does not have any ties to libertarianism whatsoever, because that is collectivism. And Ayn Rand
Yeah.
talked about that. She said, what did she say? It was the lowest, most crudely primitive form of collectivism is what Ayn Rand called racism. It doesn't fit within libertarianism at all.
And Ron Paul says the same thing. We just think that the obsession with racism culturally is grossly overemphasized, and that it is not a problem to the degree that Democrats and progressives think that it is. We actually, human beings are not perfect, but we think they're better than what a lot of these people out there are claiming that humanity is. We actually, I think that humanity is a little bit above the bar they've set. So we deleted that line in the rights and discrimination plank, but we did replace it with something that I thought was much better and more precise. And I personally helped workshop the language.
What's that?
We uphold and defend the rights of every individual, regardless of their race, ethnicity, or any other aspect of their identity. There you go.
That sounds very racist.
Right. Well, because what is a bigot? We don't know. A bigot is, well, we don't like you because you said you are part of the Mises Caucus, therefore you're a bigot. Okay. Well, we actually uphold everyone's rights, regardless of their race, ethnicity, their gender, whatever. There you go. That's what we're about.
The other thing, and this is obviously me saying this, not you, what I would say is that racism, we can all agree about it being morally wrong. The bigger part is, what power do the racists have to control other people? And once you attack that problem, once you solve that problem, then okay, people are going to be racist or bigots or whatever it is. But if they have no control over you, if they have no power over you, if the market can spring forward new ideas that can solve problems, if you have that free market and you don't have the control in the government, well, okay, it's bad. And we agree that it's bad. But you know what I mean? It kind of fixes itself.
It does. It does. And wouldn't you prefer to know if someone this is kind of a piece of human garbage?
Yeah.
I'd prefer to know. Like the whole bake the cake thing, go to a different bakery. What are you doing? What do you want a bigot cake for? You're like, I want the bigot cake. I want the anti-gay cake. Don't do that. That's weird. That's like some weird fetish. Like, let's just move on and find somewhere else to get our cupcakes.
Yeah, I want to know if a bakery doesn't want to serve libertarians, or if they're commies, like and they hate libertarians, they don't want to serve me. Well, I'd like to know that. I'd just give my money to someone else.
And this is a thing that we encountered in LA a whole lot, which is where I lived for a long time until I recently relocated. You would see in the store shops, like it became so incredibly politicized, you'd figure out really quickly where you are or are not welcome. And it's like, just take your business down the street. You can get a sandwich somewhere else. It's uncomfortable. It's like stifling and uncomfortable to sit down for a meal in a place where you know that you are absolutely hated. And if they knew more about you, they would toss you out or spit in your food.
Yeah, that in Nashville, not quite the same situation going on over here, but that does sound really uncomfortable. You should leave California.
I'm in Austin, Texas.
Oh, you're in Austin
So
now. Okay.
I have relocated
You got it.
about a month and a week ago.
I got you. Well, congrats on that. Congrats on making it out.
Mhm.
Okay, a couple other things from this article, because it was just totally ridiculous, and I wanted to talk about some of these things because they're really common things you hear. They talk about Gary Johnson being the most successful libertarian presidential candidate in history, 4.5 million votes, 3 times more than any previous libertarian candidate. And I have been saying since that election, that's because look at the other 2 choices that there were.
Yeah.
That's always been what we were saying before the 2020 election. Libertarians were going to get a smack in the face because here they thought they were growing and everyone was becoming libertarian magically because of Gary Johnson. No offense, I guess. Offense to Bill Weld, maybe not as much to Gary Johnson, but no, it's look at the other options that people had. It was a protest vote, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, Gary's a nice guy, but what we have to really do is we have to understand, like, what is the purpose of getting someone elected or getting a lot of votes? It's not just to win a contest on paper. It's supposed to move the needle in the direction of liberty. We need to shift the Overton window. And I did not see Gary Johnson's race do that. I did not. We gained I think 7,500 new members that year at the national level, which is great, but most of them dropped off over a period of 2 years. People who voted for Gary Johnson were just like, oh, they made a split decision, a last minute decision, like literally as they're filling it out, and they were like, ugh, gross, and then they just put Gary Johnson instead and said, screw it. That's not a deep thought about liberty. That's not a commitment to advancing individualism. It's like a throwaway decision at the ballot.
Yeah.
Sorry, everyone. I just deflated Gary Johnson.
Well,
he's a nice person. It didn't do what we were hoping it would do.
I just feel like if your goal is just to win an election, then, join the Republican Party. You could probably have a way higher odds of winning an election. Like, if it doesn't matter if you are actually a true libertarian, and I'm sorry, he lost me with the cake baking thing. It's just a lot of other stuff was great, but that's a fundamental problem right there. That is a fundamental free association. Here's the big problem. This is what I see in this article. The insurgents, that's you and a bunch of your friends, are funded by donors who have been close to former President Donald Trump. But I don't know if they mean in proximity, like if people have been close to him, physically close, suggesting the takeover is part of a coordinated Republican strategy to destroy a party that has been draining away Republican votes. Angela, are you actually working for the Republican Party trying to destroy the LP to get Republicans elected?
I'm not. If I was working for the Republican Party, you would see a little bit more on the blank walls back here, but I'm still on this shoestring libertarian budget, gotta slowly decorate my new home. I think the only person that they can accurately point to is the former CEO of Overstock, Patrick Byrne. Is it Byrne or Bine?
I'm not sure.
I always mess this up. So sorry, Mr. Bine or Byrne. What's interesting about that is he actually spoke at the California Libertarian Party State Convention in 2017, prior to the caucus existing, under leadership that is definitely not caucus membership. So he's actually been moving in our circles for quite a while. And like a lot of people, unfortunately, I think he drank the Trump Kool-Aid. I also think he got a little bit burned in the process and had a lot going on. And it's no hard feelings, right? I appreciate his support. I appreciate anyone else's support. A lot of people got kind of duped by Trump, and that whole thing fell apart. And I think that most people realized it fell apart as soon as he fired drones onto Syria. That was, the mask dropped.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really our only strong connection to Donald Trump, is we had one donor who'd been around for ages. Of course, they're not going to touch any of our other large donors, and I'm not going to say their names or put them under scrutiny, but I'll tell you that a lot of the party's biggest donors who are not affiliated with the caucus also donate to a lot of GOP candidates and Democratic candidates strategically, because they're not strict party loyalists. So I hate to burst their bubble.
To me, I think the argument doesn't really work unless you are going along the lines that the party is being destroyed. I guess that could be it. But the argument doesn't really work because they're also saying that it's becoming more right-wing, which to me would suggest it's more attractive to people that are on the right, which sounds like it would siphon more votes than it already was away from the Republican Party. And so I don't really see that argument playing out very well.
Yeah. Well, and oh man, it's really taken me a little while to come to terms with the fact that a lot of people in the Libertarian Party, behave just like low information voters and Republicans and Democrats. It's very sad, but that is the truth. And the best way to go about life, right, is to engage with the truth and be aware. In the mid 2000s, there was an orchestrated attempt to make the party more mainstream and then to take it to the left, which it definitely did veer to the left culturally, ideologically. And what we have really done with the Mises Caucus is just put it back on track to libertarianism. That's what we've done. We got to reject identity politics and say, no, we're not about this. Call it out, and name it for what it is. Say that we're going to oppose war. We don't care if it's unpopular. And economic literacy does matter. And if people get up in arms over that, like, I am so sorry, but that is what we're here to do. We do things that are in alignment with our platform. And if you don't like it, too bad, so sad.
Yeah, do you think the Overton window has shifted so much that those things right there just kind of seem like ultra right-wing things now?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Like Elon Musk, people scream that he's, alt-right, all the names in the book. He's like barely center-right. He's kind of center-left on a lot of things.
Well, he supports UBI.
Yeah, Jimmy Dore, he gets called now like a MAGA progressive. It's bewildering. Everybody who doesn't toe the line or use the right words is an evil white supremacist Nazi. Even if you are believing in Medicare for all or UBI or all of that stuff, you're still an evil Republican.
There's a couple other things here where they talk about how libertarianism, because a lot of this article has to do with racism, and like what you were just talking about, it seems like if you just don't toe whatever the mainstream party line is, especially more so on the left, then you're just a racist or a Nazi, fascist, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's what I think a lot of this is, because what I notice in this article is the only thing they ever call out is that LPNH tweet, and then removing that line from the party rules. But they, of course, don't include the new line that was put in there. They just talk about the one that was taken out. And so it really seems like this whole conversation and this argument where you have to try and prove that you're not racist somehow, it sounds like you're just kind of arguing now from their point of view. They won. You have to, they're on the moral high ground, and you're the one that's
Correct.
defending yourself, instead of just saying, this is just more of the same. This is just everything that we've been seeing increasing over the last few years. And to me, that's really what it seems like is happening. I would like to see some more examples. And if there are just ardent racists inside of the party, well, I don't like that, but I would need to see it and not just take someone telling me that they exist, I guess.
We've had 2 or 3 pretty racist people pop up in the Mises Caucus, and we were actually able to toss them out within a matter of hours. Ironically, it takes the party a lot longer because you have to go through a lot of due process, and you have to figure out is this just cause? You have to whip votes. You have to wait for a meeting. But in the caucus, it's just a text to leadership. Look at this. I don't like how this looks. Oh yeah, did you talk to him? I tried talking to him. He doubled down. Kick him out. It's about an hour, if you're waiting back and forth for clarification, trying to coordinate. So we actually police our own pretty well.
So just a word they said about libertarianism. They say it offers a vision of the heroic individual who sustains himself without any external support and says, I don't depend on anybody. I can take care of myself. And they talk about how that is a fantasy and allows people to separate. I just wanted to clarify that. It doesn't say I don't depend on anybody. I can take care of myself. It says mainly I'm not going to force anyone else to labor on my behalf, so I can take what they labored for and then depend on that. I'm going to have to depend on myself. And hopefully I got friends and family that could help me out. Are libertarians against helping people when they're in need?
No, this is so weird. I feel like this is just like this really basic straw man caricature. We just did a huge push for aid for people in Florida who were hurt by Hurricane Ian, a big orchestrated push. We got supplies from Walmart. We did it all voluntarily. I mean, one of the best things about being in the Mises Caucus and the Libertarian Party is the sense of community you get from like-minded individuals and people who are willing to help you out. There's a really cool thing. I think it's called $5 Liberty Meme Club, where it's like a mutual aid society, and you just join essentially like a Facebook group or a Patreon, and people's causes come up, and you try to donate at least $5 a month to help someone get a wheelchair van, or someone who was in a car accident pay off their medical bills, things like that. Like we're all about that. We wouldn't be able to survive without it. It would be that's like living in solitary confinement if you don't rely on anyone else for anything ever. It's not a good way to live.
Yeah, no. What about we got a lot of cultural issues happening right now. Is there any place for the Libertarian Party or libertarianism in general, in your point of view, like on any of this stuff, or is it just something that we need to stay out of?
Let's think about this. So let's break this down. I think that we absolutely should engage in a culture war. And the way that we need to do that is by forging our own path and our own culture. And there are going to be things on the left and the right that we hate and things that we like. And we have to use wisdom and discernment to pick, this value represents us, this value does not, and do our own thing. People get really touchy and sensitive about culture war stuff, but the reality is you have to build culture, because culture is what moves politics. And if you completely ignore culture, people will look at you as though you're a tone deaf idiot and not pay attention to you. So you've got to engage culturally. You just need to be smart about how you do it.
I think what a lot of people, let's say on the right, would want to know is there any place, do libertarians think that there is any place for government when it comes to, say, culture wars involving children?
I think the best thing that you should do is to pull your kids out of public school, because it is an absolute hellhole indoctrination center. It has been infested with far left, socialist, communist, even progressive ideology since at least the 1960s. There's plenty of evidence for that. And the best thing to do is pull your kids out. I think the second best thing to do is to advocate for school choice, which a lot of libertarians do. And maybe the third best thing to do is to get involved at the school board level and try to decide what teachers are and are not allowed to teach your kids. We really believe that education is the responsibility of the family. And to that extent, the family should be in control of it as much as possible. So government policies should not come from top down. Any policies that are being enacted at the school level, they really need to be guided by the parents.
So as a libertarian, should I see a bigger threat to my liberty from the left or the right, or are those both the same thing?
I don't think they're exactly the same. I think they're pretty close. And I think right now, the bigger threat is from the left. And in the past, it's been from the right. And it kind of ping pongs back and forth. And I don't know what's going to happen in the next couple of years. My concern is that the right is going to get too reactive and course correcting, and that things are going to get a little bit ugly and a little bit fashy. And so I would just encourage people to don't go overboard. Owning the libs should not be your highest order in your existence. It should really be individualism, taking care of your family, and so on and so forth. Try to disengage from those people as much as you can. And conservatives have been playing defense to progressives for a long time. They really need to understand that. And instead of just always trying to own them, you've got to get ahead of them. And then most importantly, you've got to get away from them. And that's what libertarianism is about. It's about building your own future, not just constantly playing to the left.
I like it. I like it. So I got a few questions here from people from our live group. If you don't mind, gotta go through a few of those. So Dave was asking about basically what we've been talking about, this article from The Hill, some of the hit pieces that you've seen. We've seen Crowder and Shapiro and Prager and a lot of people going off on libertarianism lately. We've tried to address some of it as we saw it, but he said this could be a sign that people are fearing the LP, but is there any change in strategy that must happen to put down those attacks, or is this proof the strategy is working and the plan is to ignore those attacks and continue forward, which is not what we did today. We did not ignore the attacks.
It's a little bit of both. You got to use judgment. I mean, you got to respond strategically. Honestly, most of our negative press does not come from LPNH deleted tweets, things like that. It comes from our haters. It comes from people who kind of take the attitude of the evil woman in the story of King Solomon deciding the dispute over the baby. There are people out there who say, cut the baby in half. If I can't have it, no one can. Let's kill it. Like, people who are really filled with malice. And sometimes we need to ignore them, and sometimes we have to address them. But I do think that regardless of where the criticism is coming from, people are doing it because they're afraid of the changes that we're making.
Yeah,
Whether they're afraid that they're irrelevant, or that we're a real threat.
I totally agree with that. I would say I don't think the Republican Party is super worried if someone in the Democratic Party talks about how terrible the Republican Party is, or vice versa. And I think that getting to that point where people are attacking you as a party really is meaning that you're getting up to the level of the other parties. And if it is coming from people inside the Libertarian Party, I think the most you can do is try and figure out what those people's intentions are. Is there any truth to what they're saying? Is there any value to what they're saying? Should this be considered whatsoever? And then also take into account that whatever we've been doing for the last 50 years doesn't look like it's working all that well. So all that stuff has to be taken into account. Costco says, why do we see so much fracturing in the LP, especially on key issues that could win votes? Abortion being a big one. If the LP ran on 15-week ban with exceptions, they'd smoke a lot of Republicans and Democrats. That's from Costco.
Well, the LP has been split on abortion for years and years and years, like many years. And so what we did with deleting the abortion plank, it was deleted from the national platform, is the party basically said candidates and members can decide how they want to approach abortion, because we're just not going to agree on it. It's been a huge, ugly fight. I abstained on the vote, and then I later thought, actually, I think that was good. I think it was good that we deleted it, because we just don't agree, and it's an embarrassing, stupid fight. People who are in the South are going to be more pro-life. People in big cities are usually more pro-choice. And just best of luck to you, however you're running. That's up to you.
Yeah, I think there's valuable arguments on both sides of this idea. I understand fully both sides of the arguments, even on the libertarian side for sure. And the other thing I would say, when you talk about letting the states and the local parties do their own thing, I do like that, because I think right now we're still thinking from a top-down mindset, because we look to that authority figure up on high to tell everyone what it is they need to do. Instead, I think the Libertarian Party is thinking in the proper direction, bottom up. So I would just offer that out there. T-Dub says, is the LP preparing for the 2024 election cycle already? And can you comment on what to expect next year in terms of campaigning, fundraising, candidates, referendums, stuff like that? Anything getting set up for 2024 right now?
Yes. So right now we are focusing on building more robust affiliate support and candidate support at the national level, getting tools and resources that we're going to share with our state and county affiliates. I think that's really important, and it does take like a year and a half to build the infrastructure for this stuff, to train people and to get people onboarded. So a lot of people were critical, and they're like, oh, why aren't you doing more for 2022? You do something. Well, we're doing a little bit, and we have actually funded candidates at the national level, which is sadly unprecedented. Like, it just doesn't happen very much the past 20 years. That's a whole nother rant. But we are preparing for 2024. We had over 600 candidates run this time, which is actually down a little bit from our last couple of years. I think that's a good thing, because it means that we're running less paper candidates who are not running serious campaigns, and we have more volunteers to work on the campaigns. So I'm encouraging people to run at the local level. I'm encouraging people to understand what it means to run a serious campaign, and to take it seriously, even if you're not going to win. Make it an information campaign and make it strategic. Try to get like a really low level appointment out of it, like all kinds of things. So lots of good stuff to look forward to for 2024.
Very nice. One thing I wanted to ask about was, are there any talks of a path to unification for some of these disaffected libertarians right now that are upset? Do you think that's something that needs to happen? Is it something that's ever talked about? How can we win these people over? What would you say to me if I were a pragmatic libertarian? I've got a lot of friends that are. We've had Dan on the show, Dan Fishman on the show a bunch of times before. And let's say I truly, I had no malice or no negative intentions, but I truly believe that that was the way to go. What would you say to me to convince me that this is better and that we can all work together?
I mean, for people like that, I take the same tactic that I take with Republicans and Democrats, is that you're going to have to give us a little bit of time to demonstrate to you that we're quite serious about running a professional organization. There's so much behind the scenes stuff that goes on with staff that I can't, really talk about, but we've been working to professionalize everything at the national level. And you need to give us a chance to roll that out. And then we can see if we really do care about the same things, which is individualism and moving the needle in the direction of liberty in our lifetime. I think, though, that a lot of the people who are recalcitrant haters are not interested in unification. They are interested in destroying the party and tearing it down. And to that extent, I'm not bending over backwards to make peace deals with people who would openly lie, slander, steal a lot of money, some of them. That it's just, you got to just let those people go. That's not healthy for, it's not healthy for the national organization. It's not healthy for state affiliates. It's not a good environment for the rest of our hardworking activists to be in either.
So I wanted to say before we go, like I told you, I'm not a member of the LP, and I really, you guys, if you find a way to get me to sign up, I bet you sign up a lot of people. Not because I signed up, but because I bet there's a lot of people that are like me out there, and I can't figure out why I'm not there yet. Charlie's there; he's not here today, unfortunately. I've done it before. We agree on pretty much everything. And I just haven't felt that motivation to go do it yet. And if you can win me over, that might be a way to, you're also winning over a lot of people at the same time. Have you guys talked about those strategies to, bring some people over the line?
Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of things. I would say, first of all, is we really value the input and opinions of people who are in your position, because you are our target demographic. People who are libertarian, who are liberty-minded, who really understand things. Those are the people that we want to join first and foremost. You are the low-hanging but very important fruit. And we shouldn't be stepping over you to grab people who don't agree with us ideologically and begging them to join. People like you make our organization much stronger, especially if someone who has like a podcast and is like a polished professional. Like there's so much you could contribute, even if you were just giving little tidbits of advice here and there.
Yeah.
And so, like my pitch to you would be like, if you want to give creative input, if you want to help move and shape the direction of the party, now is the perfect time to join, because your contribution will be magnified so much more over the next couple of years than it would have been 2 or 4 years ago. And then I would also say that current leadership is going to see that and appreciate it and value you more, and that we are going to do things that are more in alignment with your own personal values. And I think that you would be really excited about the direction we're taking the party in 2024. So to that extent, I would say, please join at lp.org. It's just $25 a year. I don't like to do hard sells because I want to meet people where they're at. Because I think that's like the most important thing you can do is just like recognize someone's misgivings, their uncertainty, and say, I see all of that and I feel you. And I've felt the same way in the past. But let's just sort of like let's do it together. Let's join and see how far we can take it.
That
Um
that
and no
might have
one's
worked right there. I'll
there
let
you
everyone
go.
know later on, but that was pretty good. I think you might need to go door to door with that thing. Just
And no one's watching, no one's looking over your shoulder to see who you vote for.
yeah.
We don't do that kind of culty stuff. Like you vote your conscience at the ballot box. We want your support internally because that's where we're going to be making changes right now.
I like it. Angela, I think that that's a perfect spot to leave it at if you don't have anything else. I mean, we covered a lot of great stuff, a lot of problems that people are bringing up that I don't really think are real problems yet. One more thing. Did we get two-factor authentication on the Twitter setup?
We already had that.
Okay. All right. Making sure. Just wanted to, that was my last
We
thing.
already
That
had
was the
that.
last thing I had. Okay.
It's wild, man. People out there and on the internet knowing how to do crazy things.
Yeah,
You know,
I did get some NFTs though, or whatever crypto or what I can.
that poor guy, he got it worse. He got it worse than we did. That poor man was hacked so hard. At least we didn't lose money. He lost some money.
All right, Angela McArdle, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you.